You're just in time for the Johnny Brew Show.
What's going on, everybody? My name is John Brookhagen, host of the Johnny Brew Show, and we are brought to you by Common Sense Nevada, the Facebook page. Go check that out. All you got to do is type in Common Sense Nevada into the search bar, and that will bring you right to our news and funny conservative meme page. And what was my point? Oh, and it is indeed an homage to Thomas Paine, the original pamphleteer, who spoke out about free speech the same way I'm doing 240-something years later. Also, as I remind you always, I really need you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. You could also follow me on Facebook. Just type in the Johnny Brew Show. And even more importantly, my son here, John Brookhagen, is going to tell you exactly how to get in touch with us personally if you'd like to contribute to the show, if you'd like to schedule an interview, Carrie Ann Buck, Jesse Law, Mike McDonald. Listen to my son and find out how we could get this interview scheduled. Or if you'd just like to share your opinion or help me out with some facts that I might be missing. How do you get in touch with us, John?
You can call or text 702-682-9983, or you can email us at thejohnnybrewshow@gmail.com.
Simple as that. All right. So, part 2, season 3, episode 3, part 2 is going to be more homage to the people across this country showing up at school board meetings and fighting for their children. I got a lot to say about this. I'm sure you've got a lot to say about this. And we've got a lot of video to share for you, because you know how much I like to share these parents speaking at the school board meetings, giving them an applause and hopefully motivating you to, you don't have to speak, go down there. Or write an email, or send a letter, or talk to your neighbors. And either way, we need awareness because our children are our future. I believe the children are our future. Treat them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. This is how a teacher responds when you go to the school board meeting and speak out about changing to an anti-racist curriculum. Play tape.
So this comment right here is asking me to explain why not wanting critical race theory in the classroom is racist. Thank you for asking me this question. I'd love to explain it. So critical race theory talks about how the systems that we have, the laws that we have, how all of those are designed to oppress people groups. Things like mass incarceration, the prison industrial system, the military industrial system, all of those are used to oppress people groups. By teaching this in the classroom, we can show our kids what systems need to be challenged and thought about differently. Racism isn't going to be fixed by me going down to a kid right here and saying, hey buddy, you really need to be nicer to that kid over there, even though they look a little bit different than you. We can dismantle racism by dismantling systems of oppression, not by being nice to people. When you don't want to teach future generations about how these systems were designed to oppress people, you're taking the side of the oppressor and being racist.
What? First of all, at the end of this segment, I'm going to go on location to the Bellagio and speak with Americans from all over the country about CRT in schools and teaching children sex in schools. Now, after listening to and looking at this guy, as I sit here with my son, I do not want that guy teaching my son about racism or sex. He's a scary looking dude with scary philosophies, talking about people groups and systems. I mean, he's a flat out communist. You could tell by, he's not talking about economic systems. He's not talking about communism. But I can tell from his mustache that dude's a commie. But regardless of my influence, what did you think of that guy? Is he a teacher of yours?
No, I don't know who that is, but you know, a lot of people don't understand like what critical race theory is, like really just like dividing people, and it like trying to tell kids that like skin color matters when, you know, we're all just kids. Because there's one story I heard about like these two kids, one was white, one was black, and then they like both got like a buzz cut, and they're gonna go to class the next day and act like they look the same, and like they're gonna pull a prank on their teacher. And you know, it just shows that like kids aren't born racist. They don't care.
They're born funny.
Yeah.
That sounds like something funny to do.
And you know, it just shows that like we just need to, like, obviously racism is terrible, so like we can learn about our past mistakes with racism and everything about that, but we don't need to say how much your race defines you when it doesn't define you at all. You can do anything you want, no matter what skin color you are, what gender.
Right, let's learn how stupid it was to classify people by race and stop doing it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I tell this story a lot, so why don't you tell the story about my proudest moment when you were 5 or 6 years old?
I don't really remember it.
Oh, my God, you're the worst. All right, guys, so when Johnny here was a cute little boy and not the gargantuan Sasquatch that he is now, he played soccer. And, you know, just like I always am, you could only imagine how I am as a father. Always peppering him with questions, trying to get him to open up and communicate. I'm sure many parents of 5, 6-year-olds can do that. And I said to him, I go, who's your favorite friend on your new soccer team? And his response was the kid with the dark skin.
Well, I said his name first.
Oh, you're right, and I didn't know who it was. And I said, I don't know anybody's name. Which one is it? And tell me you don't remember. And now he remembers better than me, right?
Well, I don't want it to sound like...
Oh, you don't want to be fake news?
Well, I don't want to sound like I was...
Oh, went right to the dark skin comment. Oh, all right. Yeah, so I'm like, yeah, who the hell is Jack, or whatever his name is. And I said, describe him and whatever. And he said the kid with the dark skin was, the one that... the most defining physical feature that he could say, oh, not the girl with the red hair, not the boy with the blonde hair, the boy with the dark skin. And I was so proud of myself at that exact moment. Because he didn't know that we called people with dark skin black people and people with his color skin white people. He didn't know. I didn't introduce that. And you'll find out I'm not the only one who took this colorblind approach, which is now considered one of the worst forms of racism, to consider yourself colorblind. But also you talked about people don't know what critical race theory actually is. As we do almost every week on the Johnny Brew Show, I'll bring in another doctor or another sociologist or another person who could be considered an expert to tell you, the viewer, what critical race theory actually is. This is Dr. Carol Swain. Play tape.
It's Dr. Carol Swain, who served on President Trump's 1776 commission. Dr. Swain, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. How long has this been going on, Dr. Critical race theory? This isn't new. It's been around for a very long time, critical theory and critical race theory. How long has this been infecting our school system?
Well, it's been at the university since the 1970s. It started at Harvard, the critical race theory, but critical theory itself goes back to the 1920s, Antonio Gramsci and Marxist scholars. And as far as what is taking place today is that it escaped the university campuses, and it's now infecting K through 12 education at public and private schools, Christian as well as secular schools, and every sector of our society, including the U.S. military. And critical race theory argues that white people are oppressors, that all people with white skin are privileged, they have a property interest in their whiteness, and that racism is permanent, and that minorities, especially blacks, because blacks are being used to advance the agenda, that blacks are victims. and they need white people to liberate them by becoming anti-racist. But only white people are expected to be anti-racist. You never hear that all people should be anti-racist.
You know, and I hate the wordplay that these progressive groups use, whether you're talking about anti-racism, which in my opinion is racist, but of course anti-racism sounds great. Black Lives Matter. I mean, yes, Black lives do indeed matter, but that's not what the group is about. The group is a communist, political, Marxist organization set to defund police and break down the systems of oppression, which is basically every single system we have in America. Anti-fascist. I'm anti-fascist, I'm anti-Nazi, I'm anti-communist and anti-socialist. Anything that leads to a tyrannical mass murder, such as communism, fascism, socialism, this is what we need to ensure is being taught in our schools. Now, when I was your age, I learned about slavery. I learned about Native Americans. I learned about the Trail of Tears. We watched the movie Roots. I'm guessing that this is just beginning to permeate this new wave of anti-racism. But did you learn about slavery in the past 4 years?
Yeah, we learned a lot about slavery and the civil rights movement, and it's good to learn about it, to learn from our history, all our past mistakes as a country, and to learn from those mistakes.
Did you learn about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X?
Yeah, we learned about those two.
I mean, they're two people who had different views of anti-racism, but you learned about both of them.
Yeah, we didn't really learn about Malcolm X that much. Not that I remember in school, but we did learn about Martin Luther King Jr. So.
All right. Did you learn about, for example, this Juneteenth recently became a holiday here. It's been a holiday in Texas for over 40 years. Did you talk about Harriet Tubman, the Underground Railroad, the liberation of slaves, the laws where Southern slave owners couldn't chase their slaves, but Northern slave owners were by law forced to return the slaves, which they didn't do. They just used that as a law for Southerners not to go with guns trying to get their slaves back. I mean, did you hear about any of these things?
Yeah, I learned about all that.
How about the Trail of Tears and Andrew Jackson?
Yeah, we did learn about that.
How about the slave triangle between Europe and Africa and the Americas?
Yeah, with the trade and the slaves.
Exactly. So you did learn about this before they're implementing all these things.
Yeah.
So how do you feel? I mean, that's my problem with the CRT curriculum is it's already a part of our curriculum. We need to learn from our mistakes. And I've learned American history 40 years ago or maybe 30 years ago. He learned American history currently and in the past 4, 5, 6, 10 years. We know about the atrocities of the Native Americans. We know about the horrors of slavery and the slave ships and how some people were treated. And we learn from those mistakes. I mean, people died in order to liberate slaves. He says that he can't solve things by kneeling down to a kid and saying, let's be nicer to this kid. Why won't that work? That's how I taught you. But that teacher says that that's not going to work and that's not how we could end racism.
Well, I mean, kids aren't like that. Naturally, they're not naturally going to treat people different because of their race unless it's taught by whoever,
is teaching them. Right. All right. And here's just another example. I took a couple of clips from this Tucker Carlson piece because it's explaining how, it's not critical race theory. It's not it's actually racist. And this is, I believe it's the Joint Chief of Staff. He is the number one guy in the Army, and he is the number one liaison between the military and our commander-in-chief. And the one thing, when this whole thing started in 2014, 2016, and I was trying to educate you, the one thing I talked most about is how the military and athletics are void of racism because you guys are in the locker room together or you're in basic training together and you're just worried that your teammate has your back and knows how to do his or her job. And in the military, all they care is that you've got their back and they know how to do their job. And that's why military and athletics have been void of racism, which unfortunately doesn't seem to be the case anymore. This is a portion of Tucker Carlson's piece, which you may or may not have seen, about how the Joint Chiefs of Staff views our current racial situation. Play tape.
Concept called white rage.
I do think it's important, actually, for those of us in uniform to be open-minded and be widely read. And the United States Military Academy is a university, and it is important that we train and we understand. And I want to understand white rage. And I'm white, and I want to understand it. So what is it that caused thousands of people to assault this building and try to overturn the Constitution of the United States of America? What caused that? I want to find that out. I want to maintain an open mind here, and I do want to analyze it. It's important that we understand that because our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians, they come from the American people. So it is important that the leaders, now and in the future, do understand it.
There is, again, so much wrong with what he's saying. All right. First of all, I hate the comparisons between the summer of 2020 George Floyd riots and the January 6th riots, because really they have almost nothing in common. And I'm forced to compare the two because those are the two most recent civil unrests that we've had. But when you're talking about throwing Molotov cocktails and locking cops in a police department and setting it on fire and doing this for weeks and months on end, that is rage. Starting fires, hurting people, bringing shields and gas masks and weapons. All right, January 6th, there were very few weapons. No guns, no nothing like that. There were no pipe bombs. We heard about all the pipe bombs. We heard about the cop getting killed by getting hit in the head with the fire extinguisher. All of this was false. You watch the videos, and yes, there's definitely people that should have been arrested, whether it's for assault or for doing damage inside the place or stealing Nancy Pelosi's laptop. There were crimes committed, and people should be prosecuted for those crimes and held accountable. Just like the people in the summer of 2020, the same thing. They just dropped all the charges of everybody who was rioting in New York City in the summer of 2020. Yet there's still people on trespassing charges in solitary confinement in a DC prison. Again, I'm not here to defend anybody who trespassed or broke the law. But at the same time, that is not our biggest problem. And he talks about how he needs to investigate white rage to find out why and how this is infecting our military. And people who love this country or voted for Trump or have questions about our election does not make them traitors or does not make them revolutionaries. And it's really, really scary. Here he goes on, and it gets even worse. Play tape.
Karl Marx. I've read Lenin. That doesn't make me a communist. So what is wrong with understanding, having some situational understanding about the country for which we are here to defend? And I personally find it offensive that we are accusing the United States military, our general officers, our commissioned, non-commissioned officers, of being, quote, woke.
You know, again, everything he says scares me. But what bothers me most is not the fact that, all right, he said, I read Mao's Little Red Book. I read about Karl Marx, and I read his writings. Now, he says that as in he reads them to understand about the enemy. And I believe in that 100%. If you're fighting against communism and socialism, you should be reading Karl Marx and you should be reading about all this, socialist communist manifestos in order to combat it. And if he said he's recommending the reading of Ibram X. Kendi because he wants to be able to get rid of the problems that are dividing our country, that's fine. How dare you conflate? First of all, Ibram X. Kendi refers to Mao's Little Red Book. They refer to Karl Marx, the BLM, and all this stuff is referring to these things as inspiration. So don't say you're reading Mao's Little Red Book in order to combat communism, and you're reading Ibram X. Kendi's anti-racism manifesto, but you're not saying that the anti-racism manifesto is the same as the Little Red Book when they are. They are inspired from each other. They are motivated from each other, and they take their ideas from each other. But yet you read Mao's Little Red Book in order to understand where the enemy is coming from, but you're recommending people in our armed forces read about anti-racism, which comes from Mao's Little Red Book and Marx's manifesto. What you're saying just doesn't make logical sense. Are you following me?
Yeah.
Anything to add to that?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay. Well, this is the gentleman I was talking about in the last segment, which quotes the 1964 Supreme Court decision involving a robust trading of ideas as outlined by the Supreme Court in 1964. This is another guy that we need to applaud speaking out at a school board meeting. And let me give you a little background on this guy. This guy was not even scheduled to speak. He went there, and he's an outspoken guy, but he was talking to another mother who was scheduled to speak at the previous month's school board meeting. And the mother was talking about how the school board has been intimidating the speakers and being really mean. And she was so scared and intimidated that she withdrew her request to speak publicly. And he said, well, then let me speak on your behalf. And this is the second half of what he had to say. Play tape.
Make your comments,
I'm
but
quoting,
do not
just
do
a minute, do
name
not
calling
talk
like
over
you
me.
just did.
This is my comment, not your comment. I'm quoting to you now from the United States Supreme Court 1964 case, New York Times versus Sullivan. This is constitutional case law in this country, and I'm quoting you from the U.S. Supreme Court. The judges wrote that this nation is founded on the, quote, profound national commitment to the principle that debate on public issues shall be uninhibited, robust, and wide open, and that it may well include vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasantly sharp attacks on government and public officials. That's constitutional case law in this nation. I don't have to be nice to you. Nobody behind me has to be nice to you. If you don't like living in the United States of America, then you can all move to Russia, Cuba, or China. This is the First Amendment. And I will caution you, solicitor. There is a video camera to my left. If you edit this tape, then you're going to have a big legal problem on your hands, because my right to critique your fascism, which is what this is constitutionally protected. There are emails, public record emails, in which the Director of Equity is lobbying and advocating for public comment to be censored in this school district. And you know what? You know what? Lobbying for it, advocating for it. We've got the school board president saying she'll do better at hitting the mute button in blatant violation of the Constitution. For her lobbying and her advocacy of unconstitutional censorship, I want you, the school board, to terminate the employment of Dr. Charissa Gibson with immediate effect. And after you've terminated her employment, I want all of you to tender your resignations for hating on this country. We have a God-given constitutional right to critique you, and we can speak in any lawful tone that we see fit. And don't go looking around, Benito, because this is the United States of America. You have a good... one more thing. I want to make a verbal request right now for an unedited copy of the tape. So if any...
All right, guys. It's going to be work. All right? This guy is not at home eating dinner watching Friends. He's at the school board meeting and he's looking up the Supreme Court quote so he could be more effective in his speech. Somebody else used the Freedom of Information Act FOIA request to get the emails that are going between the school board members. That takes work. All right? And any of you, I don't care what side of the political fence you're on, if you find out that they created a new position of equity supervisor or some stupid word that either contains the words anti-racist or equity or anything like that, and then you find out that they're actively communicating with each other in order to suppress parents' speech. If they're actively talking about how to more effectively use the mute button to suppress parents' opinions, you have to be appalled. You have to say, yes, I believe in anti-racist and all this stuff, but I do not believe in what these school board members are doing. All right? What they're doing is literally fascist. Where is Antifa? Where are the anti-fascists? Where are the people who are trying to preserve this country? I know some of you on the progressive side of the fence are good people who think you're doing the right thing and truly believe Black Lives Matter. I believe that too. But I did my research. I know they're a communist group. If you're all for this progressive platform, you still can't agree with these school board members going out of their way to suppress free speech to get the parents and their opinions off the record. All right, here's another one. This is a liberal school board abruptly ending the public comments after muting this guy's profound speech. Play tape. Oh, and let me give you a little background. The guy, they've been warned that they can't make any noise or they're going to not let people speak. So you can see the people like raising their hands, like that's their form of silent applause. And just check out what he says, check out how the people respond, and then most importantly, you'll notice there's other speakers lined up ready to speak. Notice how the school board responds. Play tape.
Senator Dick Black of Ashburn, Virginia. You retaliated against Tanner Cross by yanking him from teaching for addressing a public hearing of this board. The judge ordered you to reinstate Mr. Cross because if his comments were not protected speech, then free speech does not exist at all. It's absurd and immoral for teachers to call boys girls and girls boys. You're making teachers lie to students, and even kids know that it's wrong. This board has a dark history of suppressing free speech. They caught you red-handed with an enemies list to punish opponents of critical race theory. You're teaching children to hate others because of their skin color, and you're forcing them to lie about other kids' gender. I am disgusted by your bigotry and your depravity.
Joe Mobley to be followed by Donna Russell.
Madam Chair, I move to end public comment.
Second. There's been a motion to end public comment. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion made by Ms. Reeser and seconded by Ms. King. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Corbo, can I record your vote, please?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 9-0. Public comment is now ended. We will move to our next agenda item.
Again, I don't care whose side you're on. The gentleman went up there and begged for his free speech. And what's the response? A 9-0 decision by the school board to end free speech and public comment. No, I understand where you're coming from. No, we take your considerations seriously. No, anything. They mute him. The entire room shows their support for him, and their response is a 9-0 vote to censor speech. Guys, this is a serious, serious, serious thing to consider. All right? We need more people. You'll never guess who's going to come on the Johnny Brew Show next. He seems to make a weekly appearance. I don't know if I want this guy to be president in 24 or 28. That's my only thing. I just can't decide. Do I want this guy to be president in 2024 or do I want this guy to be president in 2028? That's the only decision I have to make regarding America's governor. What does Ron DeSantis do when people are trying to suppress speech, push racial content into schools, push sexual content into our schools, and erase the horrors of socialism and communism? This is what America's governor does. Play tape.
Governor, I was so excited to read this today, and it dovetails from the previous segment we just did on this critical race theory in the schools in Virginia, on the fight against that. Now, you signed legislation that requires kids in your public schools to be taught the evils of communism and totalitarianism. Now, this is just one of 3 bills I think you signed about education. Briefly explain why you did this and why now.
Well, I put in a civics requirement in 2019 for high schools. We're expanding that to include discussions of the evils of communism and totalitarianism. And then also we're creating a Patriot Museum, Patriot Library, where we have stories of Floridians who fled from communist regimes, from Cuba, from Nicaragua, from Venezuela, and beyond. And so this will show the effect that these bad policies had on people's freedoms and livelihoods and their families. Many of them in South Florida, for example, lost family members to communism. I think it's important that that we get this in the classroom and provide an honest assessment of what this totalitarian ideology has done for the last 100+ years.
Governor Ron DeSantis, I mean, he's always on point. That guy, I mean, if you don't know about the history from JAG officer and all his schooling and everything he's done. I mean, what an amazing story. And he is a young man. So hopefully he's going to be a part of our political lives for a long, long time. And he's right. Much of our population is refugee, not like real refugees, not like refugees because there was a hurricane in Guatemala. I mean refugees who were going to be killed or put in jail for life that ran from Cuba or Venezuela or Russia or any other totalitarian government. And he's starting a museum to celebrate these people and insisting that the schools teach about these people. That is diversity of thought. That is anti-racism. And that is educating our children to know how to better represent our country. You got anything to say about Ron DeSantis? What's your opinion on Ron DeSantis and what he just had to say?
Yeah, I love Ron DeSantis, and I think it is really important that kids learn about like communism and like what in the past has happened with communism and how it leads to,
food banks and jailing people for speaking,
and like just everything that is wrong with communism, and just to educate them about it so they can make their own decisions about.
I mean, I don't know if you remember this, the whole Tiananmen Square thing in China, where the people didn't have weapons. Hong Kong was being taken over by the Chinese, but once you take your weapons and their speech, there's nothing left to. You're either armed and responsible for yourself, or you're unarmed and you must be obedient unless you want to go to jail or be killed. But just like we started off this segment with a teacher who was explaining why opposing CRT is racist, and we're here to get everybody's point of view. This next one is how a Texas teacher found out that their governor also implemented similar anti-CRT legislation in Texas, Governor Abbott, and how upset she is that she's not going to be able to teach the definitive differences between the oppressed and oppressor. Play tape. This is a teacher in your schools.
Today is the first time our country has recognized Juneteenth. It's a national holiday, and yet I'm getting ready to go back to school in the fall, and my governor has put into place some ridiculous legislation that many governors across the country have put into place, such as I can't teach anything divisive, I can't teach critical race theory, and I can't teach about racial equity. This is at all public schools, colleges, and universities. So, teachers, in the past, we've been activists. After this shit show of last year, we really need to stand up and do what's right for our kids right now. So, this is a call to action, teachers. We gotta stand up and fight for our kids because this is bullshit. We can't lie to them.
All right, guys, this is where I might not give you the response you think I'm going to say. I am worried about people like this. They are brainwashed. They think that they have good intentions. And if we had a system of media, of movies, of education that instilled patriotism and common sense and logic, this woman would be a great teacher teaching that stuff. But they're so easily manipulated by Twitter mobs that they believe in this. And it's almost hard because I can't argue with that woman. There's no way she would even hear me, because it's like you telling me that the earth is flat. A friend of mine just told me to look into this. And, it doesn't compute with my baseline logic understanding. So when I start explaining these things to a woman like that, she's not going to hear me. She's not going to understand what I'm even saying. And you hear her, a call to action. And you could teach divisiveness. We taught about the trailer. We went over this. We teach about slavery and the slave trade triangle and the Trail of Tears and Andrew Jackson and the civil rights movement, and all of our flaws are brought to the forefront. They are. How much more divisive do you want to be? No. The only thing that CRT, or telling you can't do CRT, is saying, you can still teach about slavery. You can still teach about our shortcomings. You can't teach white kids that they are oppressors and that they have inherent racism from the age of 6 months old or from the time that they're born. You can't teach black kids that they have no opportunity because of the white man, that they are oppressed, and that we have to break down all of our systems before that the black man has an opportunity. That's what you can't teach. Why is that so hard? You got anything?
Yeah, I agree, just a lot of people are so well-meaning, and it just sucks because I know they want what's best for everyone and for the kids, and then it's just all these things that the media tells us, and then Twitter, and it's just sad because they think that we don't care about the kids, or we don't want to
tell the truth.
Yeah, they think we're racist, but we aren't. We want people to be equal, but they don't understand that their way is not the only way to do things.
Right, that's happening a lot with these progressive people who are supposed to be inclusive and everybody's the same and we're all in this together, unless you disagree with them on a single point. And, and she's passionate and she's a teacher. And, if she wasn't brainwashed with untruths, she could be a great teacher with her passion and with her drive and with her love of children and stuff like that. Unfortunately, she's thoroughly brainwashed, in my opinion. I don't know. And here's another mom. This is a mom. Now, these are people. I'm sharing this because I share with you Ron DeSantis. I share with you the people speaking against CRT and our school boards. I'm also playing you the teacher who says CRT is the good thing. I'm teaching another teacher. Now, here's another liberal mom explaining how she's trying to make her white daughter a better person. So, this is a mom on Instagram or TikTok or wherever they go to vent. And this is what real people are saying candidly and in public. Play tape.
So this morning, the baby woke up and had some sort of violence in her heart. I don't know what it was, but she has been losing her mind all day. And it's interesting because I'm watching her lose her mind, and then I'm watching the preteen respond to that by trying to make her happy. And I have had to actively tell him, stop trying to make her feel better, stop responding to her tears. It's so interesting to see the conditioning of people responding to white girl tears happening so early. She's 5, and she's got an 11-year-old coming after her trying to make her feel better when she cries. We have to unlearn this whole business that white women crying is going to get them what they want in life, because that ain't it.
What? You want to handle this one?
I mean, it's just crazy. Like, it's a baby crying, and then I'm assuming it's her sister.
Right.
Like, going to comfort her. And
right.
I just want to understand how that is a bad thing.
And how is it a white and black? Do black 5-year-olds not cry, and black 11-year-old sisters not try to make the black 5-year-old girl feel better? What is white girl tears? Is this the new thing?
I don't know what it is, but it's just crazy because I think that girl would have helped the baby no matter what race it was.
Right, right. But don't you be giving me no white boy tears crap. I don't want to see that. I can't. How can you be so racist against your own race too? Like white girl tears is a thing. Like it's a 5-year-old girl crying, and her 11-year-old sister tries to make her feel better. I think that's beautiful. I think that's compassionate, and you should toughen kids up, and every time they cry, you don't run over to them and take care of it. But at the same time, how dare that mom talk about her own 5-year-old daughter like that with such a racial context? It's just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But, go ahead.
And it's just like how that would impact that kid, like what does that 11-year-old have to think about that? It's just...
Right, is the mom telling the 11-year-old to ignore white girl tears or something like that? I don't really understand. But you notice we played about 6 or 7 clips. Half of them were progressive liberal clips, and half of them were conservative, Republican clips, and it is what it is. And obviously I have my opinion, so I'm definitely unabashedly supporting half of them and making fun of the other half, and I apologize if I'm supposed to be a little bit more unbiased, but that's what I want to do for you guys here on the Johnny Bruce Show. And again, I went out on the Strip. I talked to Americans from all over the country on the Las Vegas Strip and asked them how they feel about everything from CRT entering the classroom to the sexuality and the sexual content and talking about anal sex with elementary kids and masturbation, which is, what we covered last week on the Johnny Bruce Show. So here, again, this is brought to you by Rob's List, ROBSLIST.org, Republican-owned business supporters list.org. And this is brought to you by my man on location, Rob Kafka, who does all the editing, all the filming, and all the help to bring you this great coverage. This is the Johnny Bruce Show, asking the American public what they think about some of our people that are big in the news right now, as well as CRT in schools, and finally, sex education in schools. John Brookhagen, what?
Can I say something?
Yeah, go for it.
Like, just like we were talking about earlier, how, their brain, like some sort of brainwash, and like they think that they mean well. It's like the same thing with COVID, you know. They think like all the lockdowns and the masks are like the best or the best way to go about it, but you know, we care about people's lives too, and it's not like we don't care. We just
don't think the masks are working.
Yeah,
but they're losing their mind, saying you gotta wear a mask.
Yeah, that's like the biggest difference I see is just, you know, we're both trying to help and we both have good intentions. The left kind of like thinks that we don't, but we understand that they do. We just know that there are different ways to go about it than them.
And our opinion is they're misinformed, but we're not questioning their authenticity or their you know, they call us a racist. I think being opposed to school choice is racist. But I don't go around racist,
Yeah,
you know, or saying that a black person can't get an ID. Racist. I don't do that.
Yeah, it's just being informed, you know, but...
All right, well, another thanks to Rob Kafka and robslist.org. This is the Johnny Brew Show on location at the Bellagio Fountains. Play tape.
Welcome back, friends. You're just in time for the Johnny Brew Show.
Want to do an interview? You ready? What's your name?
Jose.
My name Gary.
M-I-K-E.
All right, what's your name?
Octavia.
Rob, what's up?
Joe.
Lee.
I'm just going to say a name, and you can answer with one word, or you can answer with the whole sentence, whatever you feel. You ready? Joe Biden.
I don't know. I'm stuck there, man. Good guy.
All right, Joe Biden.
Our president.
Joe Biden.
Did?
I voted for him, so I see nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe Biden.
Nothing.
Joe Biden?
Yeah.
Love him.
Love him.
Old.
Joe Biden.
Shit.
Vladimir Putin.
Nah, I don't know him. Dictator. I don't know much about him. Seems like a power horse, I guess.
Better than Joe Biden.
Russian's president.
On one hand, he's stern with politics, you know.
Oh, the Russian president?
Yeah.
I don't know too much about him.
But on the other hand, there's a lot of suppression of, you know, media.
Don't know him.
But on the other hand, I feel like more people are united behind their country, and it's so not as split or divided.
Donald Trump.
Awesome.
Okay. I personally don't have nothing against Donald Trump.
Better than both of them.
Donald Trump, he's a
Donald Trump. And you're not allowed to say the former president.
Glad he's out.
All right, what about Trump?
Hey, get that money, Trump.
All right.
Piece of shit.
Anthony Fauci.
No comment.
And who's the governor of Pennsylvania?
John Carney.
Carney, and how do you feel about him?
Love him. I used to coach his kids.
Anthony Fauci.
Fake. Charlatan.
Charlatan. If you're going to answer in one word, that carried a lot of weight.
The man of different opinions.
How so?
I don't know. This whole year has been one thing, then another thing, then a different thing. But whatever makes the crowd happy.
Dr. Anthony Fauci.
He should be dead too.
Okay, and where are you from?
Mississippi.
Mississippi. I don't know who's your governor in Mississippi.
Governor Tate Reeves.
Tate Reeves.
Yep.
And how do you feel about him?
He's okay.
Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Oh, speaking of gray areas.
Yeah. He had
At first, I liked Fauci, but I've read some things about his emails and stuff that have made me iffy about it. I don't know. I'm 50-50.
He's got a tough job.
Who is it? He's the director of the NIH. He's in charge of like the whole COVID response. Short white guy.
So they need to do better. Got to do better, man.
All right.
Got to do better with the COVID.
All right. And then your governor, Governor Brian Kemp. What do you think about him?
Think he's all right.
He's all right?
I think he's soft.
Awesome. Governor Doug Ducey.
Douche.
San Antonio. And how do you feel about your governor?
I like him. He's doing a good job.
Who's your governor in Connecticut?
Shit, we just moved to Florida, so I don't even know.
And the governor of Ohio.
He's done an amazing job.
Do you know what CRT is?
Yes.
What is it?
Bull. But critical race theory.
All right, this is part 2 of the interview. You said you had kids. How old are your kids?
I got one 11 and one 8.
Perfect. They're talking a lot about changing school curriculum to talk more about critical race theory. Do you think that's something they should do, or do you think they should leave it the way it is?
No, I don't see why do I don't want to talk about race. We talk about race every day on TV, as we walk through. Why you want to change the way my kids learn to teach them about something that they already learning about in everyday activity?
So we've got enough talk about race.
Yeah, we got enough talk about race. Forget race. We need to talk about people. That's the problem. We talking about race. Ain't no race. It's just people.
I mean, they're teaching history, especially in history. We need to learn about not just white America, you know, Christopher Columbus and all that stuff. You know, we need to learn about Black America. You know, I mean, every other ethnicity that is. You know, I think we should teach about everything if we're going to teach it.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
because it's history. So.
And how, what do you know of it that you say it's like? If you had to tell somebody I never heard of it, what would you say it is?
It's the idea that race is basically central to everything. A lot of the socio-political, everything that's going on, all comes back down to race, or at least race being one of the main critical parts of that anyway. Focus on that and be like, okay, but that's affecting everything and everything goes bad because of that. Well, okay, yes, bad shit happened, but you know what? Sorry,
Go for it. We'll bleep it out.
Bad shit has happened.
Stop now.
To everyone throughout all of history. So, you know, I mean, judging history from where we are now is kind of a fool's errand.
Right. Well, I mean, some parents are saying that we've learned about slavery and the American Indian. We don't need double the coverage at the expense of, say, the Civil War or the Revolutionary War.
Absolutely. Now, I think you should definitely be teaching those things, and they should be in there, but you don't necessarily have to hit it up more than once or put a focus on that. Like I said, it should be taught. Absolutely should never be taken out, but it doesn't necessarily, when you've got 12 years and so much to teach a kid, you got to figure out, you got to pick and choose.
You know, we learned about the Indians, we learned about slaves when we were in school. Yeah. Some parents are saying, you know, you're going to be taking away vital things about, say, the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, in order to talk more about something we addressed already. Is that the way you feel, or do you think that the more human side is more important?
No, I feel like it's a lot more neutralized now. I think that even if you take into any type of the slavery or into the Indian culture about more of what, you know, Christopher Columbus and bringing everything that he did over, and it wasn't just sharing, it was more taking. And I think that now in history, even like through the 60s, and erasing all of kind of the history of how America was created, even though they did it maybe not in the right way, is still history, period. So you can't change it. There's facts that happened, and if you're going to take that out and kind of decentralize to what actually it was, I think it's just kind of a pussy thing to do.
Not too familiar.
What do you know of it?
Nothing.
They're trying to include in the high school curriculums, junior high curriculums, more about the plight of, say, the slavery or the plight of American Indians, and replacing more of the standard curriculum. When I was in school, we learned about slavery and the American Indians. They want to concentrate more on that. How do you feel about that?
I'm okay with it. I think it's better to concentrate on compassion for humanity.
Do you know what CRT is?
No.
Off the top of my head, no.
The critical race theory, where they're trying to change the curriculum to focus a little bit more on the plight of, say, slavery or the plight of the American Indian. Okay. You know, for example, I don't know about you, but when we were in school, we learned about slavery and Indians. Yes. But they're saying that we need to focus more on that. Is that something that you think we should be doing at the expense of some of our other history?
Yes.
Yes.
My question is, do you know what CRT is?
No.
It's called critical race theory. They want to bring it into schools. Do you know what I'm talking about now?
No, she's a 1-year-old. We're not even experienced yet.
Do you know what CRT is?
No.
All right, it's called critical race theory. They're trying to change the curriculums in the children's schools to focus more on the plight of slavery or whatnot. Do you think they should be changing curriculum to accentuate that portion of our history?
No.
Do you think it's the schools or the parents' responsibility to teach children about sexuality?
I think it's the parents' responsibility. I don't think sexual education should be taught in school because I don't want you teaching my kid about no sex or anything at a certain age, you know? So I think it should be taught from the parents' perspective and when they think they should know about sex. I mean, because when you start teaching sex too early on, I think kids get curious and it makes them more so wants to go out and do that stuff. So I don't think
normalize it.
Yeah, and basically normalizing it. So I think that, you know what I mean, it should come from your parent because that's the person who birthed you and brought you into this world. So a stranger teaching you about sex, something that's going to probably affect you for the rest of your life, I think that needs to be brought and taught by your parents.
What do you think is the youngest student should learn about specifics about sexual intercourse?
I mean, I think the parents...
By the school, not the parents.
I don't know. I can't say about a school, you know what I mean? Because, we don't know what the parent has taught their kid. And with the way social media is now and internet and YouTube, kids is learning about sex now at 5 years old. You know what I mean? There's certain things that they can type up in the YouTube. I think that should be parentalized. I think that should be controlled more. But I don't know a certain age, man. I don't know. I don't want to put a certain age on it because I don't want my kids to be talked to about it until I think that they're ready. And when is that?
Right, every kid is different.
I think it's the parents' responsibility. While the school is, I need you to teach them the basics, the fundamentals, reading, writing, spelling, math. Everything else past that, I got it.
You got race, you got sex, you got all that.
All that. I'm going to teach them all that.
What if the school insists on teaching your kids about sexuality? What is the youngest they should teach kids about specific things about boys and girls having sex?
It's about 12.
12 would be the youngest you'd feel comfortable. 7th grade.
Yeah, about 7th grade. You start experimenting around that time.
Having a knowledge of it, I don't think is a problem at all. But, also, some teachers, I wouldn't ever want them to be talking about sex around my kids. So I think that's where the situation's kind of just a little bit difficult to say this is just going to be it.
I believe it is the parents.
All right. Now, some people, they're going to teach some sexual education in school. What do you think is the youngest that a school should be teaching specifics about, say, intercourse or anal sex or masturbation?
Well, okay, for the biological purposes, I say you could teach them as early as 5th grade, teaching biology-wise. If you're going to go anything else into that, like, for example, practices like masturbation or the anal, then that should definitely be either high school or not at all. Masturbation, okay, sure, whatever. The anal sex, I mean, because it's not necessarily strictly natural, yeah, lots of people do it, but it's not necessarily the way things were intended. So,
you're not going to make any babies.
Right. So I have no problems with the school teaching biology and teaching the biological process and everything. When it comes to actual practices, though, that should be more of a moral issue, which is something that parents should be teaching, not the schools.
Yes, both. I mean, first and foremost, it's got to be the parents' job, but we all know kids are born into rough situations. They're never given a chance. So the more we can do as school districts, the better off our humanity is going to be in the long run.
And when you're talking about specific sex acts, that's something that you would talk personally with your son, what do you think is the youngest age that a child should be exposed to that in school?
Probably starting around 10 years old.
I mean, as a parent, I 100% will teach my child everything I want him or her to know. We have both a girl and a boy. Yep. And I do not see anything wrong with a school being sexually proactive. People like to have sex. Right. I mean, it's a human nature.
They're talking a lot about when to introduce sexuality to children. Do you think parents should be introducing sexuality to their children, or do you think the school should be doing it?
Oh, that's tough. I'd probably say parents first.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah?
Everything starts at the house.
When do you think a child should be exposed to masturbation or anal sex? From the school.
God
From
damn.
the school.
All right, we're done with this one. This is too much. This is too far. That's got to be high school stuff, higher than that. Fuck college.
At least high school or college. All right, you're not the only one who feels that way, and there's parents going to the school board complaining about it, and that's why we're trying to get just regular people's opinions on that. You say high school or college at a minimum.
At minimum, yeah.
At a minimum. Or the family more so than anything.
Well, family, no, those conversations you don't even have, man.
Parents' job or the school's job?
The parents.
You believe it's the parents' job. So when do you think it's appropriate for the schools to start talking about specific things dealing with sex?
When the kids get out of school.
Like college maybe, otherwise it's your responsibility. If you could tell the whole world something, it doesn't have to be about what we talked about. If you wanted to pass a message out to the rest of the country, what would it be?
Take one day at a time, be happy.
The message I would like to send to the world is make sure you look at two sides of the story. Every story has equal and valid sides to them. It doesn't make anybody right or wrong, more valid or disvalid. They're just different. You know, that's what diversity is. And if we are putting our egos aside and learn to recognize that everybody has a story and has, you know, that's equally deserving to be heard, I think we'll be better for it.
Stay positive. Stay positive.
If I could tell the world one thing, we need to practice more so of peace and coming up with a resolution of regarding everybody's issues in America. We know that we have differences and there's racism and all that stuff, but we need to come up with a solution and stick to it.
You are not nearly as special as you think you are, but you are probably more special than you fear you are.
Me, I'd say have more compassion. Be understanding of everyone's differences. We're not created equal.
You look right in the camera and you tell the world what you want to say.
Hey man, peace, love. It rules the world, man. It runs everything. Peace and love. That's all we need.
Live your life and love the life you live.
So that's what people from around the country had to say that are visiting Vegas, and a good variety of answers, and it was good to hear. And tell someone about the Johnny Bruce Show.
And you guys notice that everybody has slightly different views. Not one of those people agreed with me 100% on everything I asked. I didn't share my opinions. But that little black guy, he was definitely my favorite. Who was your favorite?
I like him a lot.
And that white woman with the Ukrainian dude, I think she might be among the brainwashed population. She said, we didn't play that clip, she's like, you know, just teach kids everything about sex so that way they're educated and that therefore maybe there'll be less babies. She thinks that normalizing sex will produce less sex in schools. I tend to disagree with her. Nonetheless, that is what the American people think or know or opinionate about the things that are going on in our country. We want to know what you're thinking. Please drop us a comment. Leave us a response, who you agree with, what you think about these things. Don't forget, you could always reach us at thejohnnybrewshow.com. The Johnny Brew Show page on Facebook. 702-682-9983 is the phone number. Email us at thejohnnybrewshow@gmail.com. And most importantly, please subscribe to the YouTube channel so we can continue to grow and continue to bring you the things that affect your life. My name is John Brookhagen, here with John Brookhagen, and we will see you on the next episode of The Johnny Brew Show.